Wednesday here on Dom's Corner. I appreciate you guys tuning in a lot. Thank you very much. I'm your host, Dom Martino, of course, as I am every week. Uh, I'm sure you guys. I'm sure you guys saw on Instagram earlier. I am going to be here every Wednesday and Saturday, consistently at 5 p.m. So we finally have been blessed with an exact release schedule. So that's always nice. So there's that going for us. What you probably didn't see on the Instagram is that I will now be here. I will now be here doing reviews on Wednesday. So Wednesday is going to be kind of the sort of deep dive review day. I'm going to take these off just because my monitor's off a little bit. So Wednesday is going to be kind of like the deep dive review day, where we're going to take not necessarily even a classic movie, but just a movie that has been pre-released, and not even necessarily a movie, maybe even a TV show that has been pre-released, and we're going to take that and we are going to review it. Me or maybe a guest is going to be on here. Who knows? So that's going to be the Wednesday show. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be reviewing Kick-Ass because it is 10 years old this year, and I just realized that. So I went ahead and rewatched it to see how I felt. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. And also, the other thing that I have going on is on Saturdays, the 5 p.m. show on Saturdays. And this is all Eastern Standard Time, just so everybody knows. The 5 p.m. show I have going on Saturdays is just going to be kind of the bullshit show. We'll still go through like movie news if there's news, but that's going to be me and possibly somebody else every Saturday, just kind of sitting here and bullshitting. For right now, you still only have me, but I'm excited to hopefully bring more personalities on to the show. So, and the channel, which we may have some announcements coming up about that here shortly as well. Anyway, so that's going to be the deal. So before we get into this review of Kick-Ass, let's first make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback in the comments section. I appreciate all that. It actually really does help me get better at doing what I do and growing this channel. So, all right, so let's dive right into this Kick-Ass review. So I haven't seen this movie in a very, very long time. I remember seeing this when it came out, and I remember being very surprised by it. And I actually think it's a very, very good movie still to this day, even after I watched it. I was blown away the first time I saw it, and there's moments now that still blow me away, but there's some things I didn't feel the same as I used to with it. So there's that. That's pretty cool. But it was interesting to revisit 10 years later. I got to watch it in 4K this time, which was very, very cool. And it's one of those movies that just really paved the way for a lot of these other R-rated comic book films like your Deadpool, in my opinion anyway, because, I mean, this is kind of the first outing of a comic book film where you had all the blood and guts the way you did. Just kind of it had a little bit more of the edge to it, I guess, than we were used to in something like this. But on the same hand, it was kind of a comic book story that felt a lot more grounded. Yeah, people can argue that the Batman movies feel just as grounded, if not more, but like the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. That's what I mean when I'm referring to the Batman movies. Feel a little more grounded, if not more grounded, but I think that this is one of the more grounded comic book films, and they were actually able to do that with the R rating attached to it. And it was so cool to see. So we'll start like right with the beginning. In the opening, it's kind of asking that question, you know. At the time, I think we were all like, well, why hasn't anybody tried this in real life? You know, why hasn't anybody tried to do the superhero thing? Like, obviously that nobody has superpowers, But there are like rich people out there, right? Like your Bruce Waynes. There are billionaires, and you almost do kind of wonder why. Maybe they have not tried this in real life, and that's kind of the opening of the movie. You hear Dave Lazuski narrating is kind of like, why hasn't anybody tried this before? And you see this guy just uh jump off this building, and then as Dave Lazuski's narrating this thing, he's kind of going, well, that's not me, by the way, which I still think is funny to this day. That's some guy who broke out of a mental institution, because then you see him land, and he's dressed in like superhero outfits, and this is kind of like, well, yeah, I guess this is kind of why people don't try this. Because, when you're dressed in this superhero outfit, first of all, people think you're a lunatic. And if you're jumping off the top of a building trying to fly, it's not going to work, which I actually really enjoy this opening, because it shows that there are consequences in this world that we're about to dive into. So it does a really good job at setting up the world, and to show that we're going to work in a more grounded world. There's some things that happen that are certainly insane, but it's a more grounded world. And if you could buy into the story, it's not all actually that insane completely. I mean, the fact that, and we'll get to this later, obviously, the fact that there was a father that raised an 11-year-old girl to be kind of this martial artist to a degree is insanity. But you gotta, maybe it's happened. I was kind of asking myself that question, like, is this insanity, or is this happening somewhere in the world? Has it happened in the world? I mean, there's kids that have caused violence and chaos, and you almost kind of have to wonder, like, well, what are the parents doing? Obviously, it's a little more believable here, because they kind of dive into how Mindy's father, Big Daddy, as we know him, I actually think he's called Damon at one point in this movie, so we know his real name. But at one point, when they kind of go into that, you learn that he was an ex-cop, so he's kind of got this buddy on the inside who he doesn't keep in touch with anymore. But the buddy, I think, is kind of protecting him too, because his buddy on the inside, or ex-buddy who's still a cop on the inside, just really does not want to. What are the words I'm looking for? He still cares about Big Daddy, his friend Marcus, who's also a cop on the inside, and I love that dynamic, because Big Daddy actually wants something to do with him. But I am jumping ahead here a little bit in the story. But we'll start there, because I think that's kind of important, is to know that, like, in the center of this thing, we have this story about the father and daughter. The dad wants vengeance over Frank D'Amico, because Frank D'Amico, this big mob boss, wants Mindy had killed Damon, or we now know as Big Daddy's wife, when he had Mindy, when she was pregnant with her. And so now he wants vengeance over Frank D'Amico, so he's training Mindy to become this martial artist type, and his buddy Marcus stayed with the police force even after all this, and because in his mind Marcus believes in the criminal justice system, so he doesn't want to. He wants Big Daddy to kind of stop what he's doing. Anyway, so we'll go back to kind of like Dave's storyline. Is he's kind of asking his buddies the same thing, right? His buddies, when you see him and his buddies together in this movie, this is one of the things I really loved. Is even going back on it, is that this really does feel like how it feels when me and my buddies are sitting around in a shop, or just chatting over coffee or dinner or whatever we're doing, and we're just kind of fucking with each other a little bit, and we're being mean to each other, but we can laugh about it. And I actually like that this movie stay grounded within that. And then they meet the rich kid, or they see this kid, uh, Chris D'Amico, right, which is Frank D'Amico's son, and Chris D'Amico is the son of the mob boss, so he comes from a very wealthy family, but he's always got security around him, and Dave and his friends they feel real bad for him, and they're just kind of like, don't you feel bad for this guy? You never see him with any friends. He's always got security around him, and Frank and Chris, or sorry, Frank and Chris are obviously they kind of dive into their relationship too as father and son, which is not it is it's strange because it's very they're on the other side of it, but it's also kind of like the more normal father-son relationship, right? As opposed to Big Daddy and Mindy, who are basically vigilantes trying to take down a mob boss, but they actually have more of a twisted sort of thing going on, when you really dive deep into it. So, because you really do buy that, like Frank D'Amico loves his kid because he wants to take him to the movies, but yet, and this is normal for anybody. The dad wants the son to have nothing to do with the business at this point in his life. This is normal for a lot of fathers who own their own businesses, I think, in real life. And I found that to be weird that their relationship was more grounded and real, where you got this like twisted vigilante squad who was father and daughter on the other side of this, and they're twisted, but they love each other a lot, and they're very close. And the dad's bringing her in on his business, which is very abnormal. So for Big Daddy and Mindy, or Hit Girl, which is her superhero identity. Then in the gray area, I think, of the movie, you have the kind of father-son relationship between what's his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. I just said it earlier, Dave Lazuski. And I think that just kind of it balances everything in the movie, because their relationship, even though it's very subtle, it's kind of different because you see a father trying to get closer to his son on that end of it, in the middle of it, but Dave wanting nothing, not necessarily wanting nothing to do with the father, but kind of in a Dave's going through stuff, and he doesn't want his father to know about it. It seems like, especially after the mother passing, and so Dave tries it out, right? This whole idea of what's it like to be a superhero. So Dave dives in. He orders one of these green suits, and I laughed very hard when I was watching this again, with him playing around with the suit in the middle, because to me that's like where the movie really starts to get its sort of energy and pick up. And I love the score throughout this entire movie. It's really fantastic, and it really does give you kind of this like inspiring feeling, like even though you're watching Dave and it's funny and twisted, but there's something kind of awe-inspiring about it too, all in the middle of it. So it's a very interesting tone and dynamic that this movie gets. And also the other thing I noticed about this movie is throughout it, I really like the colors that go throughout this film. I think it's a very colorful movie, even though it's so edgy, and I think that's interesting. And I know we probably see that kind of thing all the time now, but at the time I don't think it was normal, so it was interesting to see such a colorful yet edgy and sort of gritty movie on the same hand. But then again, the movie's got a lot of humor in it too, so I think it plays to that, the color in the movie, and just the overall sort of cinematography. One of the things that was interesting to me, and so Dave, he goes out and he stops these burglars, and then I saw the color of the blood. That was another thing that popped out to me. The blood when he gets stabbed actually looks so fake to me. And now it's kind of I know it was supposed to be like this bright red blood, and they kind of used that throughout the movie, but it's used much better throughout the rest of the movie, if you ask me. And then you see it here, and in this moment where he gets stabbed, and you're just it kind of takes away from it a little bit, to me anyway, the impact. Even though, don't worry, this movie gets far more intense. It takes away from it a little bit. And so Dave, he's going out, he's fighting crime, but then he gets injured really badly, and it causes him to have kind of these metal plates throughout his body. And because after he gets stabbed, he gets hit by that car, so it does a lot to him, a lot of damage. He begs the medics to throw away his clothes so that his father doesn't find out. And I actually enjoyed that they mentioned that, because otherwise it would have been a big plot hole, as to, the dad comes to pick him up, obviously, from the hospital. How does he not know that he's kick-ass? Well, that's because they mentioned that Dave asked the medics to throw away the suit. So that was a kind of one of the big it really comes down to the script. I think in that moment the script is good enough to acknowledge that, and I appreciate a lot of things like that, because this script, it really does do a good job at like diverting your expectations in many moments. Another example I'll give is later on down the line. Frank D'Amico, he goes to kill this kid Kick-Ass, but it's not Kick-Ass. It's some guy dressed as Kick-Ass, but it doesn't tell you that till later, which actually plays for some really funny moments with Frank D'Amico and his cocaine. But when you're watching that part, you don't know that, and then it just cuts to Dave's friend at the time crying over a death, but it wasn't Dave's death. So because then they just flash to Dave, and you're like, oh, he's still alive. So yeah, it was just it's really cool how they kind of tend to, subvert your expectations a little bit, a lot of bit in this movie. And that's another thing I really appreciated, is this movie, it's never too predictable, as you're watching it. And anyway, so let's go back a little bit. So then you got so Dave does what he does. He gets, he feels like he can go back out there and fight crime, and he even acknowledges that he probably should have quit, but he's not going to. So he goes back out there and fights crime. And yeah, I got a little chuckle over him. The crime. He's kind of gun shy, I think, at this point. And then there's a moment where the only crime out there too is him trying to help find a cat, which I think is pretty funny. So he's out there trying to find a cat. Then he attempts it again, and this part is, to me, gave me goosebumps once again when I was watching it. Is when Dave actually finds a guy who's getting his ass kicked, right? And Dave actually, he doesn't exactly the guy's getting his ass kicked by like 3 different guys, and Dave doesn't like actually fight these guys off. But what he does is he fights them long enough, or holds them off long enough, that the guy's like, is this what is this worth dying for? Is this piece of shit worth dying for, that we're beating up right here? And I love Dave's thing here, where he says, this is another great thing about the script, because and just the way that the music comes into this. But Dave just saying, 3 assholes laying into one guy while everybody else watches. Then he points out into the restaurant that everybody's watching. One of my favorite parts about that is this kid sees Dave beating up all these guys, right? So then he runs in the restaurant, and he goes, I think I've seen this kind of joke in movies before, but it really made me laugh here. Is he goes in this restaurant thing, and he tells all the entire restaurant, he yells to him, there's some guy in a superhero outfit beating up these 3 guys. And then nobody reacts. And he just says, it's fucking awesome. And then everybody fucking gets up. Like, that really made me laugh a lot when I was watching Kick-Ass this time around. Yeah, anyway. So that whole speech about that, and then the guys are able to notice, like, oh shit, we're on camera right now. We better get the hell out of here. So Dave saves a guy, and then the guy just, he grabs Dave, and this gave me goosebumps even more. And this to me is like where kind of some of the heart in the movie starts to come out as the guy just grabs Dave and he says thank you, and then you really are able to see that Dave is being dumb, but he's making a difference, and one of the things that I love about this is this movie, it um, never fails to have consequences for the characters, right? Every decision that the characters make in this movie has consequences. So then Dave's, this girl's at school's feeling bad for him. I can't remember. I know it's like Lindsay Fonseca is the girl that is who plays the girl. Katie is the girl's name, and she feels bad for him at school. And Dave's, had a crush on her. They kind of set that up in the beginning a little bit. So that's one of the things is Katie's feeling bad for him, and she thinks he's gay too. Which they never really go into explaining. Like, they never explain that, like, why she thinks he's gay, I don't think, but she thinks he's gay. It's now they're all buddies, and she's being nice to him, and she's letting him wax her body because she thinks he's gay and things like that. They're having sleepovers, and he finally convinces her because this guy's being a real piece of shit to her at work, which later on in that twist that I was talking about earlier happens to be the guy that she's crying about, and I'll tell you why. Is because so she basically goes and she emails Kick-Ass. Dave talks her into emailing Kick-Ass to go kick this guy's ass, essentially. Which, by the way, I love, speaking of the name Kick-Ass, I love Nicolas Cage's joke, because the Kick-Ass video goes viral from earlier, right, when he's beating up those three guys or holding them off. Because it is mostly Dave getting his ass kicked in the video. And it's which, by the way, I gotta, well, we'll talk more about Hit Girl in a minute, but Hit Girl looks at Big Daddy and she's like, everybody seems to love Kick-Ass, and Big Daddy is a ass kick. He's good at getting his ass kicked. They should call him ass kick. Then he does that laugh. That really made me laugh. And anyway, so moving forward, we're kind of diving into that dynamic between Mindy and Big Daddy too. They're kind of messing with some mob bosses. And I do want to talk about this, is Nicolas Cage's Big Daddy is very, very good in this movie. Very underrated performance, I think. You got to keep in mind, like, he's insane, right? And Cage, in my opinion, does best when he's playing somebody who's insane. And I think people are like, it still came off as a cheesy performance, but I don't think so. I think you really got to look up for the insanity. Yes, it's funny at times where maybe he shouldn't be as funny as he comes off, but I think that was the direction he was actually given. I don't think that's a fault of Cage. I know people have critiqued that, and in that regard, like just saying that he was funny where he probably wasn't supposed to be, and it felt off, and that could just be a problem with the direction. I actually think his performance is pretty spot on here. And I've criticized Nick Cage's performances in the past plenty of times. I think this is one of his best ones, and I think that people need to really pay attention to what he's actually doing with this character. It's actually really, really good, and the same for Chloe Grace Moretz, who, I'm telling you, right around here makes this movie, because Dave's going into this place to get this guy who's messing with Katie at work, and I forgot his name. It's like Ragul or something like that. And he walks in this place, and there's this whole band of gangsters, and they're all ready to kill Dave. Like, literally, Dave's like seconds from death, and then you see the knife, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot how awesome this is. The knife just go through Ragul, I believe. And so when you see that happen, you're just like, holy shit. And you see Mindy just kicking ass, Mindy being Hit Girl, in the costume for the first time, which is a great reveal because the guy falls and then you see her and then she says some swear words and then continues to just kick some ass and it's amazing. It's amazing. And Chloe Gerschmaretz in this movie is incredible. I think this is the movie that really put her on the map. I know she'd done some stuff before, but this one is where you watch it and you're like, this little girl's a really great performer. Phenomenal. And so continuing on with that, she's kicking ass. And this is something else I wanted to get to, is the action in this movie is not as awesome as I remembered it being. It's very good, but it's still very like stylized. But I think that we've just had so many movies do it better since, with the stylized type action, that this one just it doesn't look nearly as good as it did at one point in time. But it's really about the way it's kind of edited and everything that's kind of going on in the midst of the action, that you're just kind of like, all right, But as far as like the actual action itself was not as amazing as I remembered it being, unfortunately. And it's still very good. It's still very stylized in its own way, but it's just not as good as what we've had lately, and that's fine. It doesn't come down to special effects either, so you can't blame those. It really, what it comes down to is the way it was shot that kind of bugged me here a little bit. I just don't think that the camera angles for the action and all that kind of stuff was as amazing as I remembered it being, but it was still a lot of fun to watch and very good and entertaining, and it definitely it keeps the pacing going, so I'll give the action that in the movie. She kicks ass, and then she gets kick ass out of the little compound, I guess you can say, and then they're all she's jumping over roofs, and Dave knows that's something he could never do, or at least at this point. Then they tell Dave, well, they sneak into Dave's house later on, and then they're like, hey, if you need us, put on your website that you're on vacation and we'll be there to help. And then comes into Frank D'Amico. He's so pissed off because, all these guys are getting killed, and within his little mafia family, and they're in like the cocaine industry right now at this point in time, and he's getting pissed off that Kick-Ass is messing with all these dudes, even though it's not really Kick-Ass, it's really Hit Girl and Big Daddy, right? They kind of set this up throughout the movie. And so he's just pissed, but he thinks it's Kick-Ass because he doesn't know of any other guy out there who's trying to be a superhero or anything like that, right? But all these witnesses are saying, we just saw a superhero, so he just assumes it's Dave Lazowski. He doesn't know it's Dave Lazowski, he just thinks Kick-Ass. So Frank D'Amico, he gets his son into the business finally, and he's so excited to be in the business, and he's like, I can help you out, because of, and it really is dedicated to all the comic books that he's read. He's like, if you want to get a superhero, they're going to trust another superhero. So he's like, I'm going to need these specific things, which I love, because it's such a funny scene, because the dad's looking at the list like, really? But okay, whatever it takes at this point. And then also you have the one guy, the character's name is Joe, and I can't remember the actor's name, but he's so funny in this movie. I love the part where he's talking to the one door guy. He's like, I can't believe I got demoted to a door guy. And he's like, look sharp, look at all them buttons. I love that kind of thing. And then here, the son's telling him, he's like, the only thing we gotta do is screw somebody over in order to make me a convincing superhero, because basically they're gonna make it like he busted one of the guys in the mafia, right? So, which I thought was really, really funny. And they're trying to think of guys that I can't remember. He's like one of them says like George or something. How about George? And the dad's like, no, we can't do George. He's too important. And then I think Joe, this is what he really makes me laugh in this movie, because he starts getting into it, right? He's like, Tony, and the son goes, Tony, I hate Tony. Christopher Mintz-Plasse is actually very good as Chris D'Amico in this movie. He plays such a good character, and he's very funny in a different way. It's not like the McLovin Chris Mintz-Plasse. I think that this is a more mature role for him in a lot of respects. And he's so funny though. He's funny in a different way though, and he finally just goes, he's like Tony, and then you just hear Joey's like, yeah, fuck Tony, he's a scumbag. I love that. So they're that happens, and then you see on the news that this Tony guy got arrested, which it's kind of a funny cut to the news where Tony's now in jail, and you see what they did, and then they make it like Chris D'Amico, or now known as Red Mist, had busted this guy just to make him a convincing superhero, which I actually thought was really, really clever of the story. And finally, so they're talking about who's hotter, Red Mist or Kick Ass, in the comic book shop with his buddies. I love that his buddy, because the girl still thinks that Dave is gay, right? Katie. And so his one buddy goes, "How about you, Dave? You like Red Mist? You like all that leather or something like that?" And Dave goes, "No, Marty, not really my type." And that, by the way, that's Clark Duke, who's playing the one buddy. And he's you don't see him in movies anymore, and I don't know why, because I really like him in these Kick-Ass movies and Hot Tub Time Machine. You never see him anymore. I know he was getting into sitcoms, and then I don't know what happened to that guy. And then the other one is Evan Peters, who obviously has a career post this movie. And we all know what happened to him. He far more successful after this. But anyway, so they're doing that thing, which I like the dynamic of it, and it's a joke. And so Red Mist finally emails Kick-Ass, and Kick-Ass doesn't actually want to do it anymore at this point. He saw way too much already, so he's like, Dave Lazuski's like, I'm out, but Red Mist emails him anyway. And then Kick-Ass comes up to or meets up with them, and then they're like, we're gonna go stop some crime. And this has a really, really funny scene in the car where they're singing that CeeLo Green song from ages ago, that crazy one. But which is really, really funny. They're not singing it, they're dancing to it. But I think it's a clever, funny scene, because Red Mist is seeing Kick-Ass just dance his song, and he's like, he might actually just be a normal dude. It's the first time he's looking at him like he might just, or not necessarily normal dude, but he might not be the guy we're looking for. He might not be the badass. He almost looks confused when he sees Dave dancing, because he's like, he might not be this badass motherfucker taking down the mob. It's kind of the look in his face, and they get to this warehouse where they're actually he's supposed to be taking Kick-Ass to set him up, but it turns out the warehouse was already on fire. Big Daddy had already been there, and they know that from the footage on the camera. That was stuffed in this teddy bear, which I love, because they go in there to try to save people from the fire, but it doesn't work out. So all he grabs is the teddy bear, and I like that Kick-Ass looks at him like, why'd you save the teddy? I don't know, man, let's go. And then they go out and excuse me. So then that's Kick-Ass's last straw at this point, right? He's like, I'm done with this. Which yeah, I mean, you get it at the moment. He finally was like, I'm done, but I'm gonna do one last thing. And the last thing he does is, this is one of my favorite lines in the movie, is what's the difference between Spider-Man and Peter Parker? Is Peter Parker is what was it? It was like Spider-Man gets the girl, is what it was. So he goes and sneaks into her house. This girl Katie, who he really likes, as in the Kick-Ass outfit, she maces him, which is obviously what you should do if somebody's standing behind you. If you're a woman, and I don't know why he didn't see that coming, because I don't know. He was thinking of his little Spider-Man philosophy, which is true in the movies, but I like that this, again, makes the effort to show you that we're going to have consequences for what our characters do, real consequences. And, yeah, so finally he pulls off his mask, he reveals himself, tells her he's Kick-Ass, which I remember the reaction to that being a lot more shocked than just her yelling the F word when he tells her that, right? And it wasn't. It was just more or less um just that. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it was shock, but it wasn't the shocking. I remember her being so much more shocked and asking him a lot more questions about this, but I guess I was wrong about that, and I don't actually like that. I think that she should have been more shocked in the moment than just yelling the F bomb, but it just kind of seemed like she didn't care, and then he was kick ass this entire time, and then next thing you know, she's inviting him over to sleep, not like the sleepovers that they used to have when she thought he was gay, but like actual uh not they're dating now essentially, so they sleep together, and then there's that. um so anyway, he uh what happened next? Now I've lost my train of thought, and I apologize, everybody. um oh yeah. They look at the footage on the camera, and it was Big Daddy that took out everybody in the warehouse, and so they're like, okay, well, we got to hook back up with Kick-Ass because he can get a hold of this Big Daddy person. Because Kick-Ass had mentioned that there were other superheroes out there, and to Red Mist earlier, which I left that out. But he did mention that to him, so he's like, well, we got to meet back up with them. So he meets back up with them. Kick-Ass he's on vacation on the thing. He tells Kick-Ass that, like, people are coming to kill him or something like that. I don't think that this was too well thought out a plan from a screenwriting perspective, but I was like, whatever about it. And then so they set they set Big Daddy and Mindy up. At first, Big Daddy's actually being very cordial, which you're not sure if he's going to be, toward Red Mist. And then he looks at Mindy and he says, hit girl, manners. And so she gets up to shake his hand, and then he comes up with the pistol and just shoots her twice. But we'd seen earlier, and this is something that you probably don't think of in the moment that he does it, that we'd seen earlier, and they set this up pretty well, that when they were training, Big Daddy was training Hit Girl, that he had her in bulletproof vests. So again, you probably didn't think of this when she got shot. So she got shot, and this will come into play later, obviously. She got shot out the window, and then they kidnap Big Daddy, and they also the mob guys. They also kidnap Kick-Ass, and I like this part from Chris Smith's plots. I thought he did a good job performing this, because he was like, Dave, I'm sorry, or Kick-Ass, I'm sorry, like, he's with me, guys, please, no. And he performs that really well, and Dave's just like, and so did Aaron Taylor Johnson as Dave Lazuski. Kick-Ass, if you're watching the expressions on his face, this moment's really intense, because he's just making these really, like, confused looks at him, like, what, like, what's going on? And it's a perfect expression for the moment, in my opinion. So yeah, so that happens, and then they're all in this warehouse, and they kind of set up this, like, live stream, right, where they're going to take Big Daddy and Kick-Ass and execute them, right, like, right on this live stream thing. And everybody's freaking out, and Katie's freaking out, his girlfriend, they're getting hit with bats, and it's just insanity. And then this is the moment where Hit Girl just steals this, not only this scene, but this entire damn movie, is when she comes in with these. And this is the best action sequence in the entire film. The one that ends pretty good too, but I'll get to that. The best action sequences in the entire film is Hit Girl, in my opinion, coming up with these night vision things. She cuts the lights, right? Like, right when these guys are about to die. And then I love these, like, first person shots through the night vision things that she has. And then she's just shooting everybody. And Nick Cage is yelling some kooky lines here. Which, okay, I'll admit, probably a little bit misplaced in with how humorous it is. But it doesn't necessarily not fit the character either. But it was just, I think this is a direction problem that the movie has. But I still laugh at those lines. They still get a laugh. I just don't know if it was the time for humor, because this moment is so intense. I just wanted to stay in that. But it's not so bad that it ruins the entire moment. The moment's still there, and you still get your fill. And this is, to me, is like when I was watching this, I was like, damn it, I forgot how good this movie could be. So she's killing people. She's shooting them with pistols through her night vision goggles, and you're seeing it from this like first person view, and just the way she's doing it. She's such a badass in this movie. And then she throws down this strobe thing, and it's, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And the one thing I will say, even though Nick Cage is delivering his lines in such a kooky way, I love that he's telling her what to do and she's listening. And man, and then she gets everybody. And this is the part where Nick Cage, right, like they lit him on fire still, like right before she went out to do that. I forgot to mention that, but they lit him on fire, and she's basically so he's burnt to shit by the time she gets done with all these guys, because there's so many of them. And so she gets to him, and this is like the saddest moment in the movie, because the way Nick Cage just he's all burnt up. She takes off his mask, right, and he's all burnt up. And which kind of was like an homage to Return of the Jedi a little bit, right? Like Luke taking out the mask and seeing his father's face for the first time, but he's seeing it all burnt up, and it's devastating to him. And I felt the same kind of dynamic here when she's taking off Big Daddy's mask, and just seeing her father's face burnt up for the first time like that, and he just looks at her and just says, you know, good job, all in pain. And this actually it made me well up a little bit watching this again. And I know it definitely did the first time I saw it, but definitely again it did. It's insanity to watch, and you're very sad for this very twisted dynamic, and that's when you know the movie did its job, right? um so you get back to the house, and oh, by the way, I love that scene when Big Daddy and Hit Girl are ordering the uh, rocket launcher, not rocket launcher, the jetpack that also has like machine gun turrets on it. Because you have no idea what it is till later on in the movie, and that's like a big reveal, and it's awesome. Dave goes back to her house, and one of my favorite lines in the movie is that they're in the car, and um, um, something about I don't remember. It was something about my dad wouldn't be alive if you were, or something like that, or my dad would be alive if you were not now. So basically, she basically tells him straight out, like, I have plenty of money to take care of myself. You don't have to take care of me. Um, shit that's real hard hitting in this moment. And I do like, it's kind of funny to watch her. She's driving the car back to the warehouse where her and Big Daddy used to train. But anyway, getting back to it here. Um, excuse me. I think it's one of the best moments. Dave's washing this blood off in the mirror, and Mindy's just kind of looking at the I love the hot chocolate moment, because they made hot chocolate, and they showed that before they went out on this whole ordeal, right? Before Red Mist arrived, they'd made themselves hot chocolate. She's just staring at the hot chocolate, and this is Mindy's decision, which makes her the most significant character, in my opinion, to this entire film, because her decision is also going to end up being Dave's decision, because Dave, he doesn't want to see her basically fail, right? And he knows that he screwed up by bringing Red Mist to the house, and which set Big Daddy up, and basically got him killed. And I guess that was the point I was trying to make earlier. Anyway, so she's so good here, Chloe Gerschmaretz, and then they're looking at this thing and that they had ordered, which is that ends up being the jetpack. And they're like, he goes, "Is that what I think it is?" Still, they're not showing it on screen, right? But he says, "Is that what I think it is?" She goes, "Yeah." So you have no idea what it is if you're new to watching this movie, and I like that a lot. Again, another reason this movie's so good at subverting your expectation. And he's like, actually comes with an instruction manual or something like that. She's like, you better start reading it because you're going to be using it in 5 minutes. And then, anyway. So, and I loved at the warehouse that the one big guy who works for Frank D'Amico. He stole that bazooka, right? So he comes back with this bazooka, and he's like, Frank, what did Frank say? I missed this part earlier when I was talking, but Frank D'Amico goes, a bazooka. Okay. I love that. Anyway, getting sidetracked here, but so they set it up, and this is like some of the most badass stuff in the entire movie, but still not as badass as the sequence prior, in my opinion. But they're just going around. She's going through this entire warehouse, just messing up the mob, finishing up what her father wanted, right? And the goal was to kill Frank D'Amico. That was always the father's goal, and bring down his entire mafia house. And they're finally doing this. What's left of it anyway, right? The entire mob family. And then they um, Kick-Ass comes up with the jetpack, and you're like, oh, that's badass, because you finally find out it's a big reveal right there. You finally find out what it is the entire time, or what it was. And so you're pretty excited about that. And then I love the fact that they played the Elvis Presley music, just made it so much more epic behind it. Hallelujah. And he's shooting out the windows and just killing everybody. And then I just found that part to be so amazing. They get into the warehouse, and after that, after they're in the warehouse, Hit Girl goes up to, like, with hand to hand combat with Frank D'Amico, and then Kick-Ass and Red Mist at this time, or Chris D'Amico, if you will, are going up against each other. They're just doing these hand to hand combat fights, and yeah, it's amazing. It's my second favorite action moment in the movie, is these hand to hand combat fights. And then finally, Kick-Ass does take out Red Mist, and then Frank D'Amico, on the other hand, I like that they were earlier in the movie. They actually set up that he was training as well in sort of the martial arts, because you wouldn't have bought this as much. But he takes down Hit Girl, and he's like getting ready to kill her, and then Kick-Ass comes up with the bazooka and just, why don't you pick on somebody your own size? Which, cheesy line, sure. And then Frank D'Amico goes flying out the window, and just blows the hell up, and I loved it. Great finale to this whole thing. Then Kick-Ass and Hit Girl, they fly out the window, right? And I think this is one of the cheesier shots in the movie, although it could have actually looked worse when you really think about it. I could see people just criticizing the shot of them just flying down the city on this jetpack, because it does look kind of funny, but whatever. And then they end up on this building, essentially, and then I like that. This is another one of my it's a real sweet, like, kind of comedic moment. He takes off his mask, and he goes, Dave Lazuski, and she goes, I know that, dumbass. And then and she laughs, though, and I thought that was kind of sweet that she actually had a laugh, because it's the first time you really see her humanized, I think, that much, And anyway, so she takes off her thing, and she says, Mindy McCready is the name. Mindy McCready, and I just thought that was a real sweet moment, and she's kind of letting him in a little bit, and that sets up some stuff for Kick-Ass 2, which will, I'm thinking about actually really reviewing Kick-Ass 2 next week, so you guys got to let me know in the comment section if that's the one you want me to do next week. I would really like to. I'm definitely gonna watch it again, but I would really like to talk about it on here. So yeah, let me know if that's the one you want to see, because I can do that. Anyway, so moving on. That's actually pretty much where the movie wraps up. I love this movie. Again, watching it again. I think it holds up almost just as much. But there are some things, like I said, some of the action just didn't hold up as much as I would have liked it to. Cinematography is pretty on point throughout it, though. And also, I do think that the score is one of the best, honestly, for this movie. I like the score for Kick-Ass 1 and 2 a lot. I can't believe this movie is 10 years old at this point. It definitely is one of the best movies from 10 years ago. I know Inception also came out 10 years ago, so there's that. um, which is obviously like a masterpiece. But this movie is kind of one of those things that it just really paved the way for a lot of comic book films and a lot of the more harder edged comic book films, and it allowed, in my opinion, R-rated comic book films to sort of start to come to light, really. And I really respect this movie for that, and I really was able to see that here. I think the beginning is a little rough. I'm not gonna lie to you. The beginning of this movie is a little rough. But like once the action hits, it just kind of keeps going from there. Has incredible pacing. I highly recommend Kick-Ass. I don't give grades anymore, so I'm not going to do that. But this was actually like a lot of fun to talk about a movie this way, as opposed to the way I used to review them. Anyway, guys, Kick-Ass is a hell of a time. I definitely recommend watching it again. It's good to revisit after 10 years. It's very bloody, very gory, very on the edge. But it might just be the comic book fix that you need. So I highly recommend that. Alright, guys, I do have to wrap up the show, unfortunately, early. Please make sure you like this video, hit that subscribe button, leave some feedback in the comment section below. I've been your host, Don Martino, again. Thank you for watching. Share this with your friends. I'll also be leaving my social media in the description section below, so be sure to follow me there. Much appreciated, as always. I've been Dom Martino. This has been Dom's Corner, and I'll see you guys on Saturday. Thank you very much.